Hello and welcome to another episode of Father and Joe. I am Joe Rockey here with Father Boniface Hicks. And first off, I'd like to thank everyone who is joining us on YouTube. I know that you're only seeing the logo of us, but it is a great way for you guys to be able to communicate directly with us if that is one of the things that your heart inclines. And that is a lead into what I wanted to talk about in this episode today, Father, as every Mass, especially Easter, is a calling for us to grow and enhance our relationship with God. That is the opportunity or it's one of the opportunities that is laid before us during the Mass. And I was thinking of many times in my life, there's even movies that have hit upon this theme before, of waiting for that perfect moment or something to build up exactly the way you have it built in your mind. And then we'll have a perfect relationship, or then I'll be able to say the things I've always wanted to say, or whatever the case might be. And I have found personally that rarely does that thing ever exist in real life. Rarely does that moment ever truly present itself as that was it. This is the time to go. So knowing the romanticized version of this is the perfect moment, everything works out, the rom-com's happy, roll credits, versus the way life actually works, I wanted to use this as the week of Holy Week, talking about how to create the moments or just embrace the relationship with God.
Yeah, well, Holy Week is such a rich opportunity for that. Holy Week is really the pattern of all time. So every week is Holy Week. Every Friday is a share in Good Friday. Every Sunday is a share in Easter Sunday. Every Wednesday is a share in Spy Wednesday. Every Thursday is a share in Holy Thursday. So Holy Week is the pattern of all time that has been set by the Creator of time, the one who has created us, through whom all things were made, as we say in the Creed. I believe in, etc., through whom all things were made, Jesus Christ, the Word. That's a quote, a reference also to the prologue of John. So he is the pattern. God is the pattern for all time. God has fully revealed himself in Holy Week, and so Holy Week becomes the pattern for all time. And then how has God revealed himself? He's revealed himself as relationship. He's an eternal relationship of love. And so what do we have during Holy Week? In some sense, we have the dance of the Father and the Son. We have the Son and the Father expressing the fullness of love for humanity, even sinful humanity, to the point that the Son will enter into the depths of our suffering, our separation, our sin, the division that we've created, that he enters into the depths of it in order to rescue us, to bring us back, to reach out to us, to hold on to us, to bring us into the embrace of the Father. So it is the Father and the Son in their love for one another conducting their rescue mission for humanity to bring us into their eternal embrace. And that embrace, that rescuing, that reunion, that redemption is all through the power of the Holy Spirit. And he's the structure of all of that dynamism. And so how do we do that in Holy Week? Well, it's what Holy Week is all about, first of all. I hope that's the simple message, the simple way to communicate what I just said in a lot of words. But it's what Holy Week is all about. And so how do we enter into that? Well, one thing is certainly, if to whatever degree possible, to go to the liturgies that are offered in the church. Even including the Chrism Mass at the cathedral, traditionally on Holy Thursday morning, but a lot of dioceses celebrated earlier in the week for different reasons, mostly the convenience of those getting there, not having even more things to do on Holy Thursday. But beginning with the Chrism Mass to participate in the church's Holy Week, actually beginning with Palm Sunday, I should say, to participate in the church's Holy Week liturgies, that triumphal entrance into Jerusalem, Palm Sunday, and then the Chrism Mass, where the bishop consecrates the oils and priesthood is renewed, and then certainly the Triduum, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and then the Easter Vigil / Easter Sunday. To the church's prayer really leads us into these great themes in a way that not only calls them to mind to think about them, but actually makes them present, that we can participate in them and be transformed by them. These great themes, these great mysteries of God's eternal love for us, which again is an expression of his Trinitarian communion, his relationship, his internal relationship that is unbreakable, an unbreakable bond of love that is extended to us, that we can be embraced by, that we can participate in. We have to leave out the breakable parts. We have to leave out the sinful parts, the divisive parts. We have to leave out the parts of us that reject love, that create division, that hold on to, I don't know, a certain kind of self-centeredness or egocentricity. But in letting go of those parts of us, and that's why we especially go to confession at some point during Lent, to make that formal and sacramental in our decision to choose God and not to choose a repetition of our own way, to let go of our sinfulness and experience forgiveness and redemption, but then to allow ourselves to be drawn into that communion of love. So letting go of our own resistance to love, opening up to the love that reaches out to us, allowing that love to flow into us and then through us in the way that we extend it to others, and bringing all of that into the church's liturgy, the church's prayer, the representation of these mysteries. There's just so much richness there. And maybe it's worth noting, Satan hates Holy Week, and he ends up playing right into the hands of those who are trying to celebrate Holy Week by creating problems, creates technological glitches. He creates conflicts and divisions between people. He creates misunderstandings, and he creates all kinds of issues. And we can end up feeling overwhelmed by those things, wanting to give up because of those things. We can be tempted to turn away or abandon faith because of those things. But the way that God uses that is that he allows Satan to do those sorts of things so that we can share in the passion of Christ, so that we can share in the effects of the damage of sin, so that we can share for our own part, whatever is are caused by ourselves. We already share in some of those consequences, but then that we can also take up some of the sin of the world, that we can take up some of the division and chaos that has entered into the world, and that we bring that into the embrace of Christ. We share in his passion, we share in his cross, and then we share in the bursting forth of his love in the resurrection and the victory that comes through that. So again, the things we get to choose, we can choose to go to the Holy Week liturgies. We can choose to go to confession. The things we don't get to choose, all of the stuff that is going wrong, whether those are sins committed against us or the consequences of our own sins. But what we can choose is whatever is going wrong, we can bring into the passion. We can bring it to Jesus. We can embrace it and let ourselves share in his work of redemption. And so those are a few starting points, how Holy Week can really help us enter more deeply into relationship with God.
And diving into the points of where it can be hard, which is, I think we do a fairly good job, if not from us, from just anywhere else, that God is loving and caring about you and as open as it can be. And there is a natural propensity, I think is the right word, to not want to ruin that. Especially if you're in a spot where you're understanding your own limitations, sinfulness, pain, drawback, whatever the case might be, whether it is self-done or it's happening from outside events, other people's sinfulness, even not necessarily sinfulness, just things didn't work out that you tried in your best effort. Like for instance, right now I'm trying to get my camera to work and it keeps freezing. So I'm trying to have this recording. I don't think it was necessarily sinful that I did that, nor do I necessarily think it was sinful that that man was born blind in last week's gospel. I just think that there is a reality that sometimes things aren't happening the way that you want them to. And we can feel through our own processes an inadequacy and unworthiness because we're not on the same level of caring, sharing, maybe not even with God, but maybe as far as where we felt as we've been in the past, or maybe where we ought to be. And I have, going back to the original thought of this episode, thinking that we have to be in that perfect spot to have a moment where we can enter into relationship with God is really the misnomer that I'm trying to attack and address within this. And I think that you're doing an absolutely fantastic job of saying this, Father. And I just want to re-cement that into the audience in that, yes, we have a propensity to sin. And when we go to confession, that sin gets wiped away. And through a change in your life, whether it be small or big, hopefully we reduce that propensity to sin moving forward. Doesn't guarantee that it's never going to happen again or anything like that. You know, habits take effort. There's just no way around that. But my number one calling for this episode, for as you're listening this, is to not have whatever bug on your windshield to keep you from going to go see and build this relationship up with God. So, Father, I want to give you a chance to respond to that, as I feel like I kind of rambled there.
Yeah, well, if you remember, holiness is the perfection of love. And so sin is missing the mark. That is to say, it's making decisions, aiming in a direction that's a little bit off from the perfection of love. And one of the hardest times to love is when we are things are going wrong, when we are under attack, when there is division, miscommunication, when there is our own shame and failure that we want to cover up, or we want to make up for in some way. When we're trying to prove ourselves, perhaps, or when our ego gets in the way. But all of those are different ways that we are missing the mark in aiming at the perfection of love. And we see in such a clear way in the Passion of Christ the way that he, in the worst circumstances, false accusations, terrible physical suffering, his own, the betrayal of his own apostle, and the failure of his other disciples to stand up for him, in the worst circumstances, he continually responds with love. He keeps extending his hands even to those who harm him, let alone those who accidentally harm him. Or, and even with the apostles, I mean, we presume, even potentially the betrayal of Judas, that it's out of weakness, out of fear, out of misunderstanding, out of, so we don't even have to apply evil motives to those things. Just like your camera, we don't need to apply evil motives to the camera producer or anything like that. But, in those difficult, terribly painful circumstances, emotionally, physically, spiritual, Jesus remains focused on the Father. Jesus continues to extend forgiveness to those who are hurting him, betraying him. Jesus continues to express perfect love. And so that's the training ground that we need. We need to be in places that we can actually practice loving more perfectly rather than repeatedly giving into missing the mark, sinning, not aiming at that perfect love. And again, we learn to love by receiving love, and so our willingness to receive His love, even in the face of our own rejection and fear and weakness and withdrawal, and putting ourselves in His place and pursuing idols rather than the living God, and all of the things that we do so regularly, sinning, missing the mark, falling short, not aiming at perfect love. In all of those, He continues to love us, and our reception of His love that heals and redeems helps us to love and return Him in response, and then our brothers and sisters in the way that He has loved us. And again, that's where, as the church, the whole church goes through Holy Week and celebrates, not just in a kind of joyful reminiscence, but really celebrates and makes present again the redeeming love of Christ in the sacred Paschal Triduum, in Holy Week, in these sacred mysteries, that we have the chance to receive that. And the more that we can bring our broken, bruised hearts that have been weighed down by so many things in this world, and we can expose them to that divine love that enters into us and transforms us. And then it really transforms us as we make a decision to love in the same way. That's the path for us. It's easier to say than it is to do, but hopefully, if we at least have some of the concepts right, we can aim at the right thing. Setting our aim is so important, that we're not setting our aim at the greatest financial gain, or setting our aim at the becoming the most popular person, or setting our aim at having the most pleasure, or setting our aim at controlling everything. Those can be fine instruments, but then towards setting our aim at the perfection of love, using all of those things in particular, submitting money, honor, power, pleasure to the service of love is the real transforming effect of the gospel. And that's the path that Jesus leads us on, especially in His Passion in this Holy Week.
Yeah, and in some ways, it comes all the way back to our own personal vulnerability. And in that, what I'm trying to say is that a lot of times we feel that when we're unequal with someone, whatever the case might be, I can trust them more. I can be that person. But we see within ourselves very often that if someone is untrustworthy, I don't want to open up to them. Or if someone I think is going to betray me because they're not on my level, I'm not going to do that. And we all know that internally. We might never be able to express that. And in one ways, this is our challenge of learning the faith and knowing the faith, is that everything you just said that Jesus went through without, in terms of the pains, physically getting whipped, crown on his head, nails through him, hung to death till he suffocated. That's about as bad physically you can get. But in terms of all the emotional stuff, but it's literally sold out. But all of his people who said they would never leave him instantly do. His mother has to watch him go through all of this. All of the different emotional pains are there as well. And one of the things that keep coming to me, and I don't know if the language at the Station of the Cross is universal or if it's just in the particular book that we have, but it brings up that, like a lamb, he never opened his mouth. He never screamed. He didn't. He could have brought down the sky and ripped everything apart, and he didn't. And where I'm getting to this is, there's a very real part in all of us that knows that if I could have done something different to make that go away, I'm not sure I would have not pushed that button. I'm not sure that I would have had there. And therefore, within us is the potential of denying of, well, I'm not worthy enough to be with God. And hopefully in this episode, it came across that, with direction and with aiming correctly, you are. And that other people are capable of being awesome and you can still be close to them as well. I think is the end takeaway here, Father. But we have a couple of moments left here in the conclusion of this episode. If you want to add any final thoughts.
Yeah, just an encouragement again to enter into Holy Week. Maybe for the first time, maybe in a more intentional and a deeper way than ever before. Go to Holy Thursday. It's an evening celebration. Take off on Good Friday. Don't even in communist countries, in Cuba they have Good Friday off. So I think we can take a day off of work and then certainly the Easter Vigil if you can. That the whole celebration is just the most beautiful. It's the fullest celebration of the year, and is beautiful. So it's all those things are a bit longer than normal, but that's not really the right way of measuring things. It's more grace-filled and transforming than anything else that the church offers. And so the more intentionally, personally, thoughtfully we can enter into those liturgies, the more can really transform our lives.
Yes, participate. I guess that's the number one takeaway. This is not a passive event. Relationships are not passive. Be active in them. And we thank you all for being active in the relationship that you had with us at Father and Joe, whether that be liking, subscribing, sharing, giving us the star written reviews. They all make a huge difference. And we thank you all for doing them, regardless of what platform you're viewing us upon.